Some seem to believe that Icelanders are tough because they come from Vikings who migrated to a cold, desolate island in the middle of nowhere, leaving the seasick and the weak in the Faroe Islands. I doubt that's true because first of all, our cousins in the Faroe Islands, they are tough as nails. And secondly, I'm not exactly the perfect specimen of a Viking. I would have been left in the Orkney Islands for sure. The image of Vikings is one of barbarians who would pillage and rape. And that's a really one-sided version of events if you ask me. The Vikings, they weren't really Vikings, they were simple farmers who would occasionally go Vikinging. I think that's a word. Doing a Viking meant sailing across the sea to recruit new slaves and of course rape, pillage and kill, and maybe the occasional village burning. From this simple farmer's perspective, the Viking stories were stories of honor and bravery, and young men would do a Viking to prove that they are now men. There were other benefits, such as money. The voyage could be potentially incredibly lucrative, and you could use this money to buy a reputation. Your reputation was the most important thing you had. There were other ways to gain a reputation. You could fight and win, or you could suck up to powerful people such as kings in foreign lands. During a Viking, you could do all of those things at once. Gaining a reputation is one thing. Keeping it, well, that's a little bit trickier. You had to defend it by any means necessary. Some of the worst atrocities in Iceland's history were committed as a result of insecure men proving they were big boys now. Can you imagine if that was still happening today? But these atrocities don't necessarily paint an accurate picture of who the Vikings actually were. Iceland wasn't a wild and a lawless place back then. On the contrary, there were strict laws and the country was governed by goðar from around 930 to 1262, sometimes referred to as chieftains. Those were the most powerful farmers and they were said to own goðar. The farmers could get their goðar by buying them, inheriting them, or sometimes they would just receive them as a gift. Every other farmer in the land needed to pick a goði for him and his family to follow. It was the responsibility of the goði to protect their followers and their rights. They also had to ensure peace in their district. And if the goði wasn't doing a good job, the farmer would be free to pick another goði to follow. Now wouldn't that be nice? The most powerful chieftains met at this thing called the Thing, which was basically parliament. And the joke in the Norseman you probably missed.
I'm sorry if you maybe took a little too much, but we're going to the Thing, so we're going to need a little extra.
Yeah, I understand.
It's technically still running today, making it the longest running parliament in the world, which some find interesting for some reason. A law speaker would recite out loud the laws in effect at the time, and the chieftains would amend them and write new laws. The law speaker then had to memorize the new version of the laws, and there was no other way to record them. Now you just had to hope that the law speaker wouldn't die. The Thing was the main social event of the year in Iceland, and it drew large crowds of farmers and families who would trade in both goods and stories. They would also settle their disputes. The disputes were settled in public by the chieftains and the law speaker, with anyone and everyone listening. And of course, there was no way to record the disputes or the decisions made. Here, the most outrageous and sensational stories would be told. Stories of revenge, murders and other fun activities. Stories that would echo throughout the ages until they would finally be recorded. 200 or maybe 300 years later. And these stories survived because they were worth being retold. Had the events in the stories been considered normal at the time, they probably would not have survived in the collective memories of generations. Just like my channel would not survive without subscribers, so please consider subscribing. This was of course a very simplified version of how Iceland was back in around the year 1000, but I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if you would like to know more about the Viking Age in Iceland.